So I've chosen to build the super shelter in this location today. As you can see, I've got a sheet metal fire pan, and I built this pan right here. It's got some legs. It's got legs underneath it, and often what I do is lay down some logs underneath it and prop it up, just so I don't leave a big fire scar in this area. We want to tread lightly and not leave a big ugly fire scar in this location, so I'll build my fire on top of this fire pan here. There just happens to be a nice spot here with this log as a backing for the fire. That'll be likely very wet, rotted perhaps, and a bit of a slow burner. The fire, as it's built here, will slowly heat that wood, eventually burn it, but the heat will be absorbed by that log and re-emitted back in this direction, and it'll also help with allowing wind to sweep through here and sweep our smoke away and up. And I could increase that log, the height of that, by adding more logs to it and having a wall-backed fire. And so if we take a look right here, this is going to be the spot for my bed right here for the super shelter. So it's about one good pace away from the fire, which is in the fire pan there. And this rectangle here is the basis for the bed, in this case, for the super shelter I'm going to build today. It'll be a single person super shelter, just customized to fit my body. Your location for the actual shelter is pretty easy. It can be rough ground or open ground. You don't require trees to tie to or any of those sorts of things. But what you do have to consider is where your fire is going to go. That is usually the governing aspect to shelter location. It's all about your fire placement and making sure that you're building your fire in a safe place. The super shelter requires flexible living or green saplings, at least in the method that I'm showing you today. So it's important to do this in a caretaker fashion. I don't just go out and rape the landscape. I always try to be a caretaker or a steward of nature and select so that there is plants remaining for future generations, and hopefully you can improve the forest by pruning and thinning it and caretaking it. So in this case, in this particular landscape, we have a lot of Saskatoon and we have a lot of willow. And there's also some alder around as well. I've used birch, I've used willow, I've used Saskatoon, I've used chokecherry, I've even used aspen if I had to, although it's not super flexible. But what you're looking for is a nice, flexible, bendable sapling about as big as your thumb. So right here I've got a grove of Saskatoon right here. These are Saskatoons, and you can see it's quite thick and quite congested in here. So I can improve this little grove of Saskatoons by taking out one or two of them and allowing space for the rest to flourish. Hopefully in a few years' time, by removing some of them and allowing a couple or three left behind to flourish, they will then grow up and become a large tree, strong and healthy without rubbing on each other, and it'll grow and produce a lot of Saskatoon berries. In this area here, one, maybe two, about as thick as my thumb. You can see right there is about as thick as my thumb. So this one and that one and that one. And I'll try and leave behind the healthiest looking specimens, right? So that the future of this little grove will be ensured. And that's how I try to approach any time you're collecting live material. So I'm going to cut this one right here with my knife and take it, and I'll leave that one behind. So by creating a bit of a bend, working it to one side, there's a bend right there. I've created tension on this side and compression on that side. So the fibers of the tree really want to, or are being stretched on this side. So if I take my knife on a 45-degree angle, not 90, not too steep, but about 45, create a bend, which I'm doing right there, and I rock my knife down, it just cuts through fairly quickly like butter. Oh, and then I have to finish it off. So that's a very quick way to effectively cut through a sapling, and then there I've got a sapling. I'm going to take one more out of this spot So I'll create a nice bend in there. There's my bend, a little pressure, and you can see how quickly I can go through. Now I've got two in this grove of Saskatoon trees. I'm going to take a few out of here, and I'm looking for about thumb thickness, and I'm looking for length too. I want them to be a little bit longer than the length of my body from my toes to the top of my head. Got one nice big one living back in here. I want to make sure and leave that one. And I'm going to try and take ones that are rubbing against it and preventing it from having a strong and robust growth and becoming a strong, robust tree. And I see there's one other one here that's really rubbing on the top and preventing this one from having a growth. There's even places where the bark's rubbing off. So I'm going to go ahead and improve the growth habit of this one. Nice. In a matter of moments, I already have 4, and I need to collect usually about 10. So for my bed, so 1 for every finger that I have. Collect about 10 of them. And then for the flexible arches, I'll get an additional 10. So it's going to be about 20. Now in an area like this, there's many thousands of Saskatoons and willow. And the impact that I have is just not going to be that much. In fact, the beavers in this area cut down way more than I would even come close to. You know, over the course of a decade, the beavers will cut down hundreds, if not thousands of trees. I'm only going to take 20 out of the many thousands that are here. And as I do it, like I've been saying, I'll be improving the forest and with a caretaker type of mentality. All right. So in a matter of moments, I've collected the 20 flexible wands that I needed. Saskatoon, I've got Saskatoon, I actually have some chokecherry, and I got a little bit of willow too, so a mix of things down in this area. And now I'll just take them back to my shelter, and away we go. Alright, so another addition to the super shelter that I'm building today is a mattress. We need a mattress on our bed to provide the most comfort and increase your ability to get a good night's sleep. And it just so happens there's a lot of spruce in this area, so I'm going to make the mattress out of spruce. I've made mattresses out of grass, I've made them out of cattails, I've made them out of deciduous leafy branches. I've made them, of course, out of coniferous branches like spruce, fir, and pine, and those sorts of things too. You can come up with many different materials to use for your mattress. When collecting spruce boughs, as in today, what we're going to use today, there's a technique I call zippering. And I'm also going to do this in a caretaking type fashion. There isn't a huge amount of spruce trees in this area, so I have to be delicate. So I'm going to make sure that I only take a few branches off of each tree and have as small an impact as possible. In some cases, you'll find one heavily branched, heavily laden tree, spruce tree, and take that entire tree down and just use it to build your entire bed. And that's another way to look at a caretaking fashion. But in this case, I'm not going to do that. I don't want to leave a stump here, so instead I'm going to just collect branches, maybe 3 to 5 off of every tree, and I'm going to take a great long walk, take more time than usual to gather the materials so I have less impact. I like to gather them about armpit to fingertip long. So I usually can, like for example on this branch right here, I can just walk up to it and reach on top of it like that, and the tips of the branch are at my armpit, my hand is up there on the stem, and I'm going to just bend down towards the ground until I get a snap. And in this case it snapped off cleanly. Sometimes you get a hinge that snaps off, and it's very simple. You take that hinge and you push back on itself, and it's kind of a zippering action, and in so doing you can collect these in a hurry. So I just walk around, collect like that, stick them under my arm, and carry on. And I'm looking for the light feathery ends. I'm not looking for pokey sharp stuff like that. And that's it. So we'll go around to this side of the tree and maybe I'll take a couple from here. Here's one down here I'm going to grab. And I'll just stick it under my arm. And I'm going to take a nice long walk. And I'm going to gather about 2 hug-size bundles of spruce boughs for my mattress. So regarding the collection of living materials and its appropriateness or inappropriateness, especially when bushcrafters are concerned, of course, no trace-minded people would be very offended at my actions right now, and I get that. But at the same time, the bushcraft community is not as hard on the environment as you might think. For example, our winter storms in this area often produce enough snow that pack on and fill the branches with so much snow, and the result of that is branches breaking off over many square miles of the landscape just due to the weight of the snow. Far more than any bushcraft shelter will ever break or ruin or take. The action of beavers in Alberta and the boreal forest consumes so many more trees than bushcrafters could ever consume. The forest fires that ravage our forest every year, of course, consume in a catastrophic scale large, vast amounts of our forest, far greater than any bushcrafter will ever do. And often, bushcrafters love nature. We love being outdoors. That's why we're into bushcrafting. And so many of us are very good advocates, and we, of course, promote getting people outdoors and enjoying the outdoors and learning in an intimate way about what our environment has to teach us. So as far as the inappropriateness of it, I know people will always have their opinions, and that's fine. But just before you go out and start screaming and yelling at people for their consumptive type activities in the woods, you really have to look at the whole picture, and you really have to consider hearing from both sides of the story. If you're a no tracer, don't be too extreme in that sense. If you are a redneck quadder or snowmobiler and you travel around and the forest feels the effects of your tires or your treads as you crush through the forest and fields and through the mountains, don't be too extreme on that. There's always a happy place in between, and we all have to work together to ensure that our forests and our landscapes will be here for many years. All right, so I've now gone ahead and collected the spruce boughs. We've got one bundle there and another bundle there, and we have all the other materials that we've gone about collecting. The total time it took me to collect those was about an hour, and depending on the environment you're in, that can take longer or it can be even shorter. In future videos in this Super Shelter series, we're going to show you different ways to build the super shelter so that you can use less materials. You don't have to build it with a bed. You don't have to build the framework the way that we're going to do it today. There are ways that you can speed up the setup of the super shelter, reduce the size of the super shelter, increase the size of the super shelter. That'll be in the video in this series that talks about variations. In the next video, we will build a deluxe elevated bed, arrange the spruce bough mattress, weave the arches together, add a reflective mylar blanket, a nylon or parachute covering, and finish with a polyethylene skin. And we will wrap up the how to build a super shelter video with some general comments on what makes it so super. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe to receive the next and future videos. And don't forget to check out our newest YouTube series that my wife has created. It's called Nature Minutes, and it's perfectly suited for classroom or family activities that get youth inspired to get out, get outside.